Tough work at the moment, isn't it? Never been so busy in all my life. Got mini sardines up this morning, gave him breakfast, got him ready for his school. Is really on top of all this homeschooling. Everything's live on Zoom. As a result, I'm a little bit. I've got to sneak out when I can, so I'm a little bit late making this video today. Plus, earlier this morning we had a cello lesson in this room using my computer. So that was that. But anyway, yeah, it's going alright, I suppose. Trouble is, we're all getting used to it, and that's the danger, isn't it? All get used to something, and then, yeah. Anyway, there we go. I've already done some chores. I've been out this morning, done some bits and pieces already. Theatre-wise, hope you're doing alright. Hope you're all doing okay. Nothing happening still, is there? Not going to be anything happening for a little while, so we keep going with this. So, meanwhile, please press the button down here, subscribe to the YouTube channel, blah blah blah. I know I've gone on about it every time, but there we go. If you could do that, that'd be great. If you could go on to subscribe to the Sardines digital issue as well on our website, and the link will be down here for the website. That would be great as well. Need to get a few more subscribers on the website if we can. And we've got an issue coming out on the 1st of February, so it's not long to go now. It's going to be all hands to the pump. I've just realised we've got to get going on this next issue really badly. And if there's anything you think we should cover in any of our issues, just let us know. Send us an email, news@sardinesmagazine.co.uk. Just drop us a quick email saying I'd love to see so and so on the cover, or if you think we ought to cover a certain type of feature, just let us know. Today I'm going to talk about something I've touched on before, which was the Gary Barlow and Tim Firth issue that they're on the front of, and we'll put the issue up here so you can see it. Yeah, it was when they were getting together. What year was it? It was, unbelievably, it was 4 years ago this month. 4 years ago, I can't believe that. The Girls, it was called. It was the musical version of the Calendar Girls play and film that Tim Firth had written and adapted for the stage, or vice versa for the film, about the Yorkshire WI that had this bright idea of putting this new calendar together to raise some money to buy a sofa for the hospital. Little did they know how successful it was about to become. Now it was going to take off. But of course, as a result of the film, Tim Firth adapted it for the stage. It's become a massive stage musical starring about every celebrity you can think of going around the country. That's been very successful. And then in 2012, the original calendar was for the 2000, for the millennium. It was for 2000. And in 2012, an 18-month window was announced, Samuel French's and with Tim Firth as well, that amateurs could do Calendar Girls the play, and it just broke all box office, all licensing records at Samuel French's. Samuel French's is of course part of Concord Theatrical Productions now, but it was Samuel French's back then, and broke all the licensing records. I think they had over 500 licenses, 600 licenses, and it goes on and on. And because a lot of it was going to charity, it was a real charitable scheme that Tim Firth and Samuel French's came up with, and it worked a treat. Anyway, we went along when the Girls, it's called Calendar Girls, the musical these days, which makes a lot more sense. It was called The Girls when it opened in the West End at the Phoenix Theatre in 2017, 4 years ago. And so we went along to the launch of that. All the press were there, obviously. Gary Barlow dropped that name in, and and Tim Firth, I mean, the two of them are very successful anyway. In lockdown, Gary Barlow has been producing these. Have you seen the crooner sessions on the Gary? I think if you put into YouTube Gary Barlow official, his channel comes up, and if you go onto the videos, you can then see all the crooner sessions, and he's done these sessions from his home studio. Yeah, very nice if we could all have one of those. But yeah, apart from that, he's done crooner sessions with about every celebrity. I'm sure he's got a fantastic diary with every phone number you can imagine in. Can you imagine what Gary Barlow's mobile phone contacts list must look like? But anyway, he's done. This is just an example of some of the people, and it's not just singers. It's stand-up comedians, celebrities, all sorts. And he's done these crooner sessions, so you might record a song with them and do a duet with the person, anything like that. Ronan Keating, Rod Stewart, Tim Minchin, who wrote Matilda, Michael Ball. Has anyone heard of Michael Ball before? Andrew Lloyd Webber. Anyone heard of Andrew Lloyd Webber? Jeff Wayne from War of the Worlds, of course. He wrote War of the Worlds. Anton Dubek from Strictly. Craig David, Nicole Scherzinger, Lulu, Brian May, Queen's Brian May, Cliff Richard, needs no introduction, Tony Hadley from Spandau Ballet, Matt Lucas, who had quite a big thing going during lockdown with this potato song, Baked Potato, I believe. And then he had Jack Whitehall, Jason Manford. I'm not sure he did with Jack Whitehall, I'll have to check it out. Anyway, we had a chat with some people as well as Gary and Tim. I'm on first names now with Gary and Tim, you know. We had a chat with some of the women who are in the cast, and I'm sure when the amateur rights are released to Calendar Girls the musical, it will again open up an incredible opportunity for amateur groups to take it on, and it will be taken on because the women is so female heavy, the cast. It's all set in a church hall. It's fantastic. So Claire Moore, who's she originated the role of Ellen in Miss Saigon originally, and she's been in Phantom playing Christine, Les Mis. She's Fantine, London Road, National Theatre. She's done everything, Claire Moore. And she told us, Joanna Riding and I have got to know Angela and Tricia very well. These are the original Calendar Girls. Claire Moore played Chris, whose husband it was that had leukemia, and they were going to produce his calendar to raise money for the hospital where he had the treatment. Joe and I have got to know Angela and Tricia very well over the last 3 years, and when we were at Birdsall for the Village Hall production, this is how it was produced when it was workshopped. It was done on a very small scale in a village hall. We spent a lot of time with them going to the pub and things like that. We really had a good old chat about how it all came about, and they were talking to us about John and the kids, and then Tricia having the idea and John saying, don't be ridiculous, and then everything happens. And you'd think that after all these years they'd have got a little bit jaded with it, but not one bit. Plus, you've got Gary Barlow now, and who doesn't love him? What's not to like? He might not be from a theatre background, but his songs are quite theatrical. Gary's songs tell a story, and they have a real narrative, and I think that's perfect. I think it's lovely that you've a bunch of older women basically going home singing Gary Barlow songs, but that's what we do. We are really looking forward to it, and people are going to be coming to see us. I can't wait, because a lot of amateur groups, of course, hired coach parties to go down in groups and parties, made a big thing of it, going to London, to the West End to see this musical. They're all going to want to do this show, and it's quite an honour to provide the template for the role, which so many people are going to have in their eye on performing in the future. Absolutely. I really hope the groups of people come down and they love it. Michelle Daltrece, who played Jessie in the Calendar Girls musical The Girls, she's obviously very famous for being in Some Others Do Have Them opposite Michael Crawford as long-suffering wife Betty. She was also in Lady Killers, all sorts of things she's done on the stage. She told us, I knew Calendar Girls had been released to amateurs, but I had no idea it was only for 18 months. Isn't it phenomenal what happened from it? And especially all the money that they've raised. Marvellous. And a lot of amateur societies that put on the play when it was open for that 18 months, not only did a portion of the royalties go straight to Bloodwise, which is the leukemia charity, but a lot of those societies set up their own charitable initiatives as well, and they raised a lot of money in their own right. Michelle Dutrice goes on, when I was asked to do it, I must confess thinking, do we need another Calendar Girls when we've already had the film and the play? Do we really need a musical now? But yes, we do. It has such an element now to it, and they've broadened it out to the husbands and the children. Yeah, because it is written quite differently, actually, the Calendar Girls musical. Whereas the play covers the whole kind of, and the film, the play is an adaptation of the film, so they both cover obviously the leukemia diagnosis, and then the idea for the calendar, doing the shoot, I think just before the interval, and then after the interval we've got all the repercussions of their growing fame and all of that stuff. The musical actually takes into account the community a lot more, and it only goes up to the shoot at the end of the production. So it covers kind of half the actual time that the others cover, but it goes into a bit more depth. Let me see, you get the real scope of this village, this community, so you understand these women's backstories. Some of them can't do what they've been asked to do because of how their home life is or whatever. You really get to understand it's not just the 6 women, there's a backstory to them all, which is wonderful, and you needed a friendship like Gary and Tim's, that's Garrett Barlow and Tim Firth, of course, to put this musical together. You couldn't have done it in a purely commercial way. It's a very special relationship, that one. And Joanna Riding, who played Annie, who's the one who had the idea of doing the calendar, Carousel, the National Theatre, My Fair Lady, very, very good actress. Now, when the Calendar Girls musical officially opened, I said this to Joanna, and I'll read what she said as a reaction. Also opening just up the road, about 1.5 miles up the road, was Amanda Holden's production of Stepping Out, which is also, by coincidence, set in a church hall and involves a group of women meeting every week. And so it's a very similar type of cast, very similar kind of setup, but a different level of interest, I guess, within the play, within the storyline. So I asked Joanna Riding, about what she thought of Amanda Holden's Stepping Out opening up the road, and I've seen that as well, and that was very good too. And Amanda Holden's actually on record as calling Stepping Out the Calendar Girls in tap shoes, so immediately referring to it there. Joanna said to me, it hadn't occurred to me, but yes, how extraordinary. The audience is going to be spoiled for choice, isn't it? And that's quite hilarious, actually. You've got Amanda's star power versus Gary's star power. The battle of the reality judges. Because I think that was around the time when Gary was it was perhaps the time when he was still doing X Factor as the head judge. Yeah, now I spoke to Tim and Gary, obviously, at the launch as well. And Tim Firth, who has written, Our House, Flint Street Nativity, done the film Black Ball, done the Calendar Girls film, screenplay of course, Neville's Island. I've been in Neville's Island, I played Neville actually. That was very exciting, and that was a really good production at Bromley Little Theatre. Really pleased with that. So I spoke to them about the whole thing, and Tim Firth started by saying, I'm personally very indebted to the amateurs. It's not a bad start, is it? When the 18-month window closed to amateur performances, various members of the groups met, I remember that, and I went and sat in the room where there were hundreds of actors who had played the same part, all talking to each other, and you realise that the play is a metaphor for something much, much stronger. Just the way the actors need to look after each other on stage and bond, not only because unusually there are 7 women driving the show who spend a huge amount of time together, but when they come to do the nudity scenes, they will only work if everyone is working for everybody else as a team. And that's true, actually. There was no sordid side to the nude scenes in Calendar Girls. It was all taken and done and performed and produced and directed in the spirit how it was written, how it was meant to be performed. It was all done with great fun. It was fantastic. Tim goes on, we needed this whole process in an amateur... Well, we started this whole process in an amateur dramatic hall with just a piano, because we needed to know that the story would work in its simplest format. If it works in that most rudimentary form, knowing that some amateur companies can produce musicals on a small scale, then it would still work. So we did it in this village hall where John Baker used to do amateur dramatics himself. Isn't that interesting how it all goes back to Am-dram? Tim says it's perfect, and we found that it stood up, didn't it? And he then asked Gary to come in. Gary Barlow says, my mate Gary, he says, yeah, I think from the day we started looking at this together as a musical, the key word was simplicity, especially musically, because it's very humble, it's a gorgeous village story. The idea of putting on a big bombastic sweeping musical together just didn't seem right, it seemed wrong, and so we always said, if we can do this whole show with just an acoustic guitarist or a pianist, then that's how we should, and it should be done like that live. I know, okay, we're going to have 12 in our West End pit, and they probably did, but we could actually just have one and it would still translate perfectly. Obviously the West End is going to spend a bit more money and have a bit more of a lavish sound, but that's fine. Then Tim comes back in. When we did it in the village hall, we had a piano, a double bass, a little drum kit, and it was the simplest format. We didn't write any parts apart from the piano, so they found their own notes and that was it. You don't need anything else, and my God, if the story's strong enough, the characters are strong enough, the comedy and is at the heart of it, and that's all you need. And Gary finishes by saying, I could hear the music straight away and I thought it should be a massive part of the story. I think the music takes the whole thing to another level. It's funny, it never felt like we were working, which is, I guess, how it should be. And it goes on, and so what I would suggest is that you subscribe to the digital issue. If you do that, you can go to number 33, read the cover story, download the PDF, it's all there, you can see how it's all set out, and there you go, you can read everything we've put in. But they wrote between them about 70 to 80 songs, and they whittled them down to about 12 to 20, I guess, for the final show. So it's amazing. But yeah, just a little bit there about my mates, Gary and Tim. And there we go. Hasn't been in touch, actually, during lockdown, Gary Barlow. Wonder why that is. Wonder why I haven't done a crooner session. Never mind, I'll have to ring him up. Stay safe, stay well. We'll be back. See you tomorrow!